You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it's Saturday the 27th of April and welcome to my podcast. This is going to be a brief one, having promised that they'll be very, very short. The last couple have run to about 25 minutes between them. So I'm going to talk very briefly today about the names you give your characters and some of the issues I've had coming up with a good name. So in the English Hikikomori, it was relatively easy. My character was called Freddie. And I worried about this a little bit initially because I've got a godson whose name is not dissimilar to that, and his mum has actually read the book as well. And I kind of said to her, "Look, this isn't meant to be your son at all or anything like that." I actually chose the name because I had in my head a sort of, the character's a good bloke, but he sounds a bit whiny when he speaks, but his heart's in the right place, and I thought that character was very like, sort of in terms of that, I thought it was very much like the character Freddie Pargeter from The Archers. I don't know if you know this about me because I've never said it before, but I do actually listen to The Archers. It's a daily, for those who are listening from outside the UK, it's a 13-minute daily drama, except for Saturdays, put out on BBC Radio 4, which is the UK's basically biggest, I'd argue only, but it probably isn't only. I'd probably get TalkSport fans shouting if I said that. But it's the BBC's and the country's main talk network, and it does drama and bits and pieces like that. So yes, I'd absolutely named Freddie after the character in The Archers. And if it ever got published, and if ever an audiobook was done, I would actually, if they ever asked me who I thought should do the narration, I would actually choose the actor who and I can't remember his name, so I'm going to have to Google it now, but the actor who plays Freddie Pargeter on The Archers would be the perfect person to narrate the book. Let me just see. Freddie Pargeter, the actor is called, I can't even find it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I've got loads of pictures up on the internet, but no names. Never mind. But yes, he would be my first choice. He would be the ideal person. So other than that, most of the names in that book were relatively easy. When I came onto Still Life, my main character is now called Saywood Amapofo. I wanted an African name because that's, although her parents live most of their life in the UK, that's, where they're from. And she was originally called Grace Amapofo. And I just didn't like the name. I was really struggling with it, and I had no idea what to call her. And then, I don't know where the name Saywood came from. It is a real name, and I think it was because I knew someone. I once worked with someone called Saywood. Now, I don't know that person very well. I'm not going to mention the surname or anything. But I knew a Saywood, and it was always in the back of my head, what a great name. And I don't know, when I was sort of searching for names for Grace, I suddenly, Saywood. And since that, she has never been anything other than Saywood, and that is my absolute favourite name I've ever had for any character that I've ever created in any of my books. Now, moving on to, there's other characters in there. I don't think I really changed. So Molly was always called Molly. Most of them, it seems to be my main character that I often struggle with getting the name right. Moving on to Empress of the Trees, which is my current work in progress, or although it may be called Wood Wide Web or The Fall or After the Fall or something like that. A friend of mine suggested the name The Fall, and I like it. I just think it needs a word before it, but that's certainly a possibility. Anyway, the character, her name, so she's named after one of the myths of the Norns. So two of my characters are named sort of after Norns. Now, Norns are mythical tree spirits, and they usually come in groups of 3, and they normally represent past, present and future. So the first Norn is called Uror, Uror, and I called her human characterisation, not a characterisation, that's not the word, her human form, I called her Ursula. It's only the first 2 letters are the same. Now, that's the Norn that represents the past, which again fits with that character. The second Norn is called Veroandi, Veroandi. And again, I was looking for a name, and it seemed that Veronica was probably the best bet. You could have had Andy, A-N-D-I, but that's very, very modern. So I was looking for Veronica. And then, obviously, I'm not going to call my main character, Veronica, but I wasn't sure what to call her, and I ended up shortening it to Ronnie, and I've been struggling with that. I've written over 200,000 words of the book now, and I'm still not enjoying calling her Ronnie. It's a problem in my head, probably more than it is in real life, because I'm guessing Ronnie is actually a perfectly acceptable name for a character. I have a couple of problems with it. So firstly, my dad was called Ron, and it certainly isn't a homage to him because she's a nice human being. And secondly, I tend to think of Ron, the character, there's a Ron in Harry Potter, isn't there? I tend to think of that. So Ronnie is not an ideal name, and I've been trying to come up with alternatives for it. But it kind of still needs to be based on Veronica in some way. Now, according to the internet, one short version of Veronica is Frankie. Now, I'm warming to this. I think Frankie as a name absolutely suits the character much more than Ronnie does. But I've also tried to research etymologically why Veronica shortens to Frankie, and I can't find that information, and it's bugging me because it does need to be linked to it. So that is a possibility I'm toying with. Another thing that's crossed my mind is I just could have her name as Veronica Francesca Keane, and that they shorten her middle name Francesca to Frankie, which would work. So I'm mulling all of that over. But Veronica Keane, at the moment it's Veronica Alice Keane. It's probably going to become Veronica Francesca Keane and shortened to Frankie. Possibly. I don't know. If anybody has any ideas or thoughts, please let me know. But yeah, that's the dilemma you go through as a writer, getting the right name for your character. And as I say, it's weird. It's in my head because actually Ronnie is a perfectly acceptable name for the character, but every time I type it, I just think that's not right. Thank you very much for listening. More tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.